friends, welcome to another episode of the Cozy Cottage Crochet podcast. My name is Hannah, and this is a podcast all about crochet, a little bit of knitting, sometimes sewing, and generally living the yarniest life possible in St. Petersburg, Florida, where I live. How are you? Happy September. Nova is at school. Noah is asleep. It's like 11:30. He actually made it until 11. He has decided to only take one nap a day now. I think it's a little early to be transitioning to one nap, but you know, he's a very opinionated baby. So there's lots going on. I have so much to tell you, so much to show you, so much yarning. So let's jump in, shall we? Get your beverage. I have some tea I'm waiting to cool down and some water and lots of projects. If you're looking for me anywhere on the interweb, you can find me as the Cozy Cottage Crochet on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. The Cozy Cottage on Ravelry. We do have a Ravelry group for this podcast. It's all linked down below. And if you need anything at all, please email me. My email address is thecozycottagecrochet@gmail.com. Now, first things first, Fancy Yarn Mal is happening right now. So it started September 1st, which is the last time I podcasted, and it's going to go until the end of November, right after Thanksgiving. And it's basically to use yarn that is special to you, whether it's fancy in fiber type, fancy because it has an emotional attachment, fancy because you only have one and you cannot get another one, fancy because the person doesn't make that yarn anymore, etc. Whatever the reason that yarn is special to you and you have been hoarding it like a little yarn gremlin, I want you to use that yarn. And of course, you can enter in the Ravelry group. You can enter on Instagram if you tag me. There's not really a hashtag for this because Instagram does not let you pull up recent posts in hashtags anymore, which is so annoying. But like, if you want me to see it on Instagram, you have to physically tag me in it. So I actually started my project. I showed you what I was going to be making last time, but I have started it this time. It is the Cirrus Shawl, which is a pattern by Rosina of the Zines and Roger. I want to say podcast, but she hasn't podcasted in a while. Maybe blog. She writes a lot of crochet patterns. This is the shawl. It is, so she works this. The solid stripes are a DK weight boucle yarn, like that fluffy, like, I don't even know what you call it. The fluffy boucle yarn. And then all of this in between is mohair, worked in a specific stitch. So I actually started this. I'm using fingering weight instead. I don't have a boucle yarn, I don't think, in my stash, but I also just wanted to use this yarn because this is fancy yarn to me. I started it and I did not like how it was turning out at all. So I restarted it. And so I will show you that as well. So the yarn that I am using, the fingering weight yarn is the colorway Iris in the Shepherd's Rainbow from the Good Shepherd. It is 80% merino and 20% nylon. It's attached to my project, so I have to be careful. Oh yeah, that's so great. It's like this blues, purples, just perfect. And the mohair that I am using is called All Hail the Purple One. And it's 72% Super Kid mohair and 28% silk from Alive with Purpose. This yarn was a gift from my lovely friend Emmy. And it looks like this. It's just a cloud of purple fluff. And I have been hoarding that yarn for a while. And I knew that they were going to be in a project together. I have 2 skeins of both of them. I will have more of this left over because this is going to take barely any fingering weight yarn. But I started this on the crochet hook that the pattern recommends, which is a 5mm crochet hook. Now, generally my gauge is pretty tight. Like, I'm just a tight crocheter. It's based on the way I hold the yarn, based on the way I wrap the yarn, etc. But because the fingering weight yarn that I was using was not DK, the pattern calls for DK, I was like, it should be fine because I'm using a thinner yarn than is called for. So I did my first 2 rows in fingering weight. No idea. I think this is the right side. This is my attempt, my first attempt. And then I worked 3 rows in the mohair. And she uses this stitch called the boucle stitch, which is basically with some increases and some shaping mixed in and all kinds of, you have to read the pattern. It's a paid for pattern, so I'm not going to give it away. But the boucle stitch is basically you're alternating working into the front loop and the back loop of the stitches. And I found this on a 5mm hook super fiddly. Like, and upon inspection, I was like, there is no way that this is going to look like the pattern. Like the fabric is just too dense. And I don't think she has any close-ups. Does she have any close-ups of the, no. There's no close-ups in the pattern of the way the lace is supposed to look. But I knew because I had gone on the Ravelry page, I had stalked other people's projects, like I knew that this is too dense. And so I just snipped this and I was like, okay, maybe it's because I'm using a 5mm hook, or maybe it's just because I need a sharper hook to get through these stitches more easily. I'm like fighting with the mohair. Maybe I should use a Tunisian hook that has a sharper point than my Clover Amours, which are like nice and rounded at the top, because those are the hooks I use for everything. So I slept on it for a night, and then I was like, okay, let me try going up a hook size. And I actually went up to a 6mm hook, which you might be like, oh my gosh, that's huge. Yes, but I crochet tightly. So gauge is based on you, right? So however you hold your yarn, however you hold your hook or your knitting needles, whatever you're doing, you may never get the same gauge as a pattern designer. You may never get the same gauge as is called for. You can, I think stitch gauge is more important than row gauge, but of course that depends on what you're making. So I went up all the way up automatically to a 6mm, and I had a much better time. I am not going to unravel this, because if you've ever tried to unravel mohair, you will know that it's practically impossible. It just eats itself. So, you know, you don't make mistakes. I'm just going to turn this into a fun little yarn headband. It's not quite long enough to tie around my head. We'll see how long this stays there. Shall I go the rest of the podcast with yarn on my head? So I restarted it with a 6mm hook, and I was instantly just so much happier. And I'm going to try and show this. I'm going to put the yarn back in because I've got 2 strands attached, so I don't want to attack it. Okay. So here is, I have done the first stripe, and you can, maybe you can't see because, see, oh yeah, right there. See the light going through the lace? That is what it's supposed to look like, not as dense as the fabric I was making before. And of course, it could also come down to, not only do I crochet tightly, but this mohair, I find, I haven't worked with a ton of mohair, to be fair, but this mohair is particularly fluffy to me. I think you could classify this mohair as probably a fingering weight because it is so fluffy and so squishy and so delightful to work with. So I restarted, I did the first 2 rows, and upon doing the first 2 rows, I was like, wow, I can't read a pattern. I did them incorrectly the first time, so I would have had to rip it out anyways. So I did the first section of lace in the mohair, and then I did the next increase section in the solid yarn. And then I have done 2 rows. I think 2 rows. And so these rows are going to start to take a very long time because this shawl is going to be huge. And it is also increasing, it's increasing 4 stitches each lace row. And it's increasing in the solid parts, it's increasing 8 stitches. So it's gonna grow very quickly, which means the rows are gonna take longer and longer. I always am like, well, I always want the shawl like bigger than is called for in the pattern. I don't know exactly how big this is because I didn't really look. Does it even have, yeah, it doesn't even have a gauge, like stitches per inch. The finished size, it says, is 82 inches by 18 inches. So that's what it looks like. It's kind of a crescent. If I wanted to, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows, or 8 solid and then lace. Yeah, 8 stripes of solid fingering weight yarn and then lace weight yarn. I totally could just keep repeating that if I wanted to make it bigger because I have 2 skeins of the lace weight mohair. So yeah, this is my baby shawl for the Fancy Yarn Mal. I hope that I'll be able to complete it in 3 months, but it's not really about completion. It's about the product. Ooh, that's an even better headband. So I'm gonna put this away very carefully. I have this in a zipper bag, which you might say is dangerous. Put this back in the bag too, because I don't want any of my yarn to get stuck in the zipper, but I also don't want any of my yarn escaping and being taken by my children if I happen to not think and leave this out. So everything is in here and it zips closed. Isn't this cute? This is a bag from Fat Squirrel. I love Fat Squirrel. I love her podcast. I love her person. Like, she just is fabulous to me. Her name is Amy. She does not know me. She's never heard of me in her life, I'm sure. But I have been following her for years and years and years. And I have always wanted one of her bags, but she does like she just has a completely different color palette than I do. She's very autumnal and like burgundies and browns and reds and things like that. And I'm very like blue, blue and silver, as if you can't tell from the house. And so also her bags sell out very quickly. So randomly, she was having a Halloween update and I set an alarm on my phone. In fact, I set 2 alarms on my phone. And the only other time I have done that was one time to buy a sock bag from Slipped Stitch Studios, which no longer is in existence, to my eternal sadness and despair, because I think they're the best sock bags I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, I have to. Like, this is my aesthetic to a T. It looks embroidered, but it's fabric, and it's like little yarn ghosts. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy with this. So it's a fancy bag to me, and it has my fancy project for the fancy yarn now. So I hope that you are working on something. Do tell me in the comments below what you're working on. If you commented last time with your plans, have you started them? Let me know. I'm dying to know. Is this still too hot? Yep, it's still too hot. Okay, I don't have any finished objects, so we're just gonna keep going with projects. I'm gonna talk about my makeup bag from the Hooks and Needles subscription box, and then I'm gonna talk about the next project I've started using that yarn. So last time, I didn't have much progress on this because of my elbow, and my elbow is still bothering me a lot. It is not bothering me as much as it was last time. I've been doing my exercises very faithfully. But for example, washing the baby bottles, like I have a bottle brush and a bottle in my hand, and I'm going like this, that kills my arm. So I have to like wash it with my left hand. I was sitting next to the couch, I was sitting on the couch yesterday next to Josiah, and I was holding his hands like this, and I squeezed his hand, and it just, right there. So I have a follow-up appointment, I think next week. So we'll see. It is a little bit better, but I don't think it is significantly better. Like it should, I feel like it should be more better. More better? It should just be better since I had a cortisone shot and I've been doing all these exercises. So, but it's been better enough for me to do a lot of crocheting. So I was going to have this finished, and I actually have purposefully not finished it because I wanted to show you this makeup bag pieces and talk to you about the process because I think it's important. So this is the pattern I'm trying to make. This is a makeup bag from the Hooks and Needles subscription box that they sent me. And if you are interested in getting your own Hooks and Needles box, you can get 20% off if you use the link in the code that I will put in the drop down. Last time you saw this, I had completed I think I had completed both sides. Thread. So I have actually completed the main body of the bag. And you might be like, wow, it looks so cute. Yes, it does. This is actually the second one. So I completed both of these. And then I just went on with my life and I completed the bottom because you have to do it. So you do this piece twice, then you do a bottom piece, then you seam it together, then you seam up the sides. And I just followed the instructions in the pattern without even looking at what I had done. I finished it and I went to hold it up to here and I was like, there's literally no way this is going to fit the makeup bag. Like, and I don't think it's a fault of the pattern. To hold it this way. You see how much longer this is? Like, this is a gauge problem with me. It's my problem. So there's 2 things that have contributed to this. And I kind of sat down and I just had a good think about it for a minute because I've never made a bag with this construction before. So basically, this is the bottom. These are the sides. It's like a cube. So it's going to fold like this. And these and this meet right here. And you do some seaming. okay? So with the long one, it was coming up over the top. And I was like, what in the world did I do wrong? And I kept looking at the pattern being like, did I do something? No, I followed the pattern right. My gauge is way off. So you may not think that gauge matters in something as small as this, but it does matter. And I just want you to not be afraid to make modifications as you need. So there's two problems that I have with my gauge on this. Number one, my gauge for these squares is, I think, significantly bigger than the gauge for the pattern. Like the squares in the pattern are smaller than this. My gauge for this is tighter, so it's not as tall. This in the pattern probably is a little bit taller. And also this is shorter. So what I ended up doing is I took this and I measured my stitches. I was like, okay, so I'm getting this many stitches per inch and I'm getting this many rows per inch. And then I took this and measured it, right? So I know that it's gonna come down like this, which means I need this much length plus the bottom plus this much on the other side. And so I basically just calculated. Let's use an example because I don't remember the numbers, but let's say it's 10 inches total and I'm getting 5 rows per inch. That means I need 50 rows, right? Of course, I'm getting, like, this is way more rows. But I'm saying 50 rows is way more rows than I did. So my gauge was much, much bigger than that. But what I'm saying is you can make modifications. So what I ended up doing is crocheting a smaller amount of stitches to reach the length in inches that I needed. And I crocheted more rows to reach the width that I needed. So all I have to do is seam this together and put in a zipper. If it was just that, I may have even just finished it, but I also really want to line this. And the tricky thing about lining this is you can see the lining fabric through the top. And so what I need is a double-sided lining fabric, and I don't want to line it twice. Like I don't want to have an inside fabric, a lining fabric, and then the outside. And so I went into I knew this was in my stash somewhere because I have had this towel. It's like a random tea towel that I got at like Target or some nonsense. I've had this for like 10 years. It's just been sitting there, but it's the same fabric on both sides. It's colored all the way through and it's the same color. So there's definitely a wrong side, but it's literally like if you were to hold the fabric up, you can't tell the difference. So I'm going to lay this out on top. It's plenty big enough. I'm gonna cut around it. And then what I'm planning on doing is sewing the lining to the zipper and then sewing the zipper to this and then sewing up the sides. Check back next time for a tale of woe about how I had to unpick the zipper 17 times because I sewed it on inside out. That's my plan. So this is like, it's so interesting to me. It's like origami. Like this is gonna turn into a makeup bag? That's crazy. So I love it. I just wanted to show you, like, even on something this small, you could have a gauge problem. And that doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It just means your gauge is different. And so you need to really sit down and think, like, what can I do to actually change this and make it to where it works for my project? Because I wasn't about to, like, abandon ship on the project. Like, I want this makeup bag. But this was not going to work for me. And I was like, well, maybe. I even had a brave, weird thought at one point where I was like, I can just fold this over, sew up a line of stitches, and then cut it off. But I was like, no, I have plenty of yarn. And I do. I still have 50 grams of this yarn that I have not used. This is a woolly wool. It's Harvest Moon. Oh, look. I wrote down my stuff. So I needed 33 stitches. I believe this was 51 stitches. I needed 33 stitches for my gauge. And I needed to make it 1.5, 3 inches, 9 inches wide. So that was 33 stitches to make it 9 inches wide. And it needed to be 5.5 inches in depth. And that was 16 rows. Look at me, I did write it down. So yeah, super fun. Hopefully I'll have a finished object next time. But I need to do all of the lining and all of the finishing. It was just fun. It was fun to do that and then be like, oh yeah, I'm doing this completely wrong. My gauge is way off. I should call this episode Gauge Problems. Now, the next project. I also am having gauge it's not a problem. I'm just using a completely different yarn than the pattern is called for. So this yarn it came out of the Hooks and Needles box that they sent me. And they had a pattern for a beautiful bag and some other things in there, which I will show you. But I decided to actually use this yarn to make something wearable because this yarn is 100% merino and it is so soft. So they have a pattern for a cute little bag and a pot holder. And then this is the really cute thing. They even give you a handle for. I love the hexie. The yarn is Hooks and Needles Merino Essence 100% unshrinkable extra fine merino wool. And it is soft, y'all. This is super soft yarn. It is a little bit splitty because it's very loosely plied. Do I have an end that I can show you? I don't know how well it's going to focus on camera, but like literally if I just do this, you can see that it's coming apart. So the splittiness does not really bother me. I'm not like mad about it because the yarn is so soft. You just have to be careful what kind of hook you use. Okay, so if you're using super pointy crochet hooks, you may have a problem because it's going to split more easily. You need more of a rounded crochet hook. So what I am doing is this, it came with 2 colors and I am making a hat out of this. I'm making the Whirligig Hat. The Whirligig Hat is a pattern by Abby Made. It looks like that. Her pattern calls for fingering weight yarn. This is worsted weight yarn. But I was like, I can figure it out. Do you like the hubris? I'm just like, yeah, I'll just make any modifications I want to a pattern, no problem. I had such a heck of a time with this pattern, and it is not because of the yarn choice or the difference in weight. It is because the pattern uses a stitch that I thought that I had never heard of. And it doesn't explain it, which drove me a little bit crazy. And I tried to start it like 3 times. And every time I was like, I don't understand what she's asking for. There's no description of this stitch. But there was a YouTube video linked and I just didn't have the time or the brain space. So finally I sat down one night. Everyone had gone to bed early. It was about 8 p.m. maybe. And the babies were asleep and my husband went to bed. And I was like, okay, it is quiet in this house. I can turn all the lights on I need. I can have my computer out to look up YouTube videos. Like, I'm going to figure this out. So it's not this stitch that's the problem. It's getting to it because you start in a spiral, right? So you have to build your stitches in height to get to something that looks like this. In the pattern, she calls for you to do something called a linked 1 upple treble. Also a linked 2 upple treble or a linked 3 upple treble. And show this like way back here for a second. This is information about that stitch, but it doesn't tell you how to do the stitch. It's just information about how this is like a groundbreaking stitch designed by this person that she names. And basically what it is this stitch is a row of Tunisian simple stitches connected to a base. And it tells you how to count them. But it does not tell you how to make the stitch. And by that I mean, like, if I'm going to tell you how to do a single crochet, I'm going to be like, single crochet, insert hook into stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. There's no information like that. There's no text description of this stitch in the pattern at all. The video that is linked does not exist on YouTube anymore. It's an older video by somebody, not the designer. And I think that she was trying to give credit to the person who came up with this, perhaps. But the video doesn't exist, and I could not find anything under that description of a linked upple treble. I couldn't find it. Maybe it's out there. I couldn't find it. So I was like, I just don't understand. Like this, I can understand how to make this part. I can figure that out, but I don't understand how to make this part. And it's not the spiral, it's the raising of the stitches. Like, how do you get the first linked stitch started? And so I was playing around with it. I was studying the picture and looking at all of these super closely. And I kept thinking, this stitch looks so familiar to me. It looks like just a regular linked stitch. But then I would watch a video on a linked stitch and it it didn't like make sense to me. And I was like, okay, so it's something else. And I just played around with it until finally I was like, oh, I must have tried 20 different ways of how to do this stitch. And I finally got the linked one double treble. And then I was like, okay, I got it. So it's basically just, you're working into the side of a stitch. So like right here, to do this stitch, my working loop is up here. Instead of doing yarn overs and working into the next stitch down here, you insert your hook here and do a yarn over. You insert your hook here, do a yarn over. Then you attach to the next stitch and do a yarn over. And then you do yarn over and pull through 2 4 times. So you're basically doing a sideways row of Tunisian simple stitches, which I finally got it. I did 1 round, and then I've since done another entire round working in the spiral. My gauge is significantly bigger, of course, so of the increase rounds, I believe I will be doing 1 entire round less than is called for in the pattern before I start working straight with no increases. But it's working up beautifully. Like, I think it is such a cool pattern, and this yarn is so soft. And I'm going to put this in here, but I want to show you, I finally remembered where I'd seen that stitch before. In this book. So I have a very small collection of crochet books. This is called Top Down Crochet Sweaters. It is a pattern by Dora Orenstein. This book came out a while ago. When did it come out? Library of Congress publication date. It does not say anything. 2016. So this book has been out for 8 years. There is a pattern in this book called the Luna sweater, which looks like this, and it is made entirely of those stitches. And it is called, what is it called? It's just called a linked double treble. And so then I was like, what is the confusion? Because a linked double treble has plenty of videos on YouTube, but a linked one double treble does not. And I think that the confusion is the pattern by Abby Made, she's Australian. And so they maybe use a little bit different terminology. I think Abby Made is Australian, because when I bought it, I think it converted it to Australian money. And the person who came up with the stitch that she references in the pattern, I believe, is also Australian. So I had instructions on how to do this. I just couldn't remember where I'd seen the stitch before. And let me show you. This is what that stitch looks like. And you can see that it's pretty much exactly the same. It is sideways rows of Tunisian simple stitches. So it's not really a Tunisian simple stitch. It is a linked double treble crochet, which means it's 4 loops or 5 loops on your hook instead of like a double crochet in US terms would be 3 loops on your hook before you start pulling through. So you'd have 5. A treble crochet is 4, double treble is 5. This is a double treble linked stitch. So all of that to say, as a PSA, if you are going to try to make a Whirligig hat, the stitch referenced in the pattern is a linked double treble. And in order to start that, you have to do, you just shrink the stitch down. So you can't just go from a single crochet to a linked double treble. You have to build the height of your stitches. So instead of doing a double treble, you're going to do a double linked stitch. Then you're going to do a treble linked stitch. Then you're going to do a double treble. So I hope that wasn't confusing. At one point I was going to make this Luna sweater. Ooh, but I decided it's not really my style, but it is beautiful. And I was so proud of myself because I figured it out without the help of this book. I figured it out simply by staring at the tiny pictures that were provided and counting and thinking and trying. And I was like, you know what? I used to do this stuff for fun. Like, I used to make patterns that were confusing and vague just to see if I could do it. And I have not done that since the kids have been born because my brain has been offline. But I'm proud to report that part of my brain has not been eaten by my children, and I can still figure out a confusing and vague pattern. And it would not be a confusing and vague pattern if she had included a description on how to do the stitch. So That's all you need to know. The Whirligig Hat, if you want to make it. It's a linked double treble stitch in US terms. And once you get it, it's super easy. But before you understand what's happening, it's the most confusing. So that's what I'm making with the hooks and needles yarn. I'm excited to see that grow because it is beautiful. And if you want a monthly subscription box with patterns and yarn and extras, like there was an extra pair of scissors in there last time, then use the link and code below for 20% off because I am highly enjoying it so far. Pause for the perfect temperature of tea. Oh, it's so good. Oh my gosh, you guys, I need to tell you about this. Do you see this amazing, beautiful mug? This mug has quite a story. So I have been watching, not much TV because I have too many kids, but I have been watching on HBO Max a show called The Great Pottery Throwdown, which is basically like the Great British Baking Show. It's in the UK and it's British people making pottery and it's fabulous. Like, it's just so low stakes. And so I've been watching all of these people making pottery and I just love the process. You're not going to catch me making pottery because I want to know that it's going to be good at the end. And you don't know with pottery, when you put it in the kiln, it could explode. It could crack in half. You have no idea. And I just can't handle that level of stress in my life. But I've been watching all this pottery, and so I've been in the back of my head being like, I really want to get a handmade mug. And so we've been to like a couple little spots, and like I've looked for a handmade mug, but I haven't seen any that I wanted to spend money on because it just wasn't the right size or etc. Then I went over to my friend's house last Monday, and she had this beautiful water jug that she was pouring water for dinner out of. And I was like, is that handmade? It is gorgeous. And she was like, yes, my friend who lives outside of Orlando makes pottery and she gifted this to me. And I was like, it is amazing. And then she, who has several of her friend's pieces, pulled out this mug and was like, would you like to take one home? Yes, I would, because it is the perfect size. It is absolutely beautiful. This is made using 2 colors of porcelain clay. It's not, I mean, it is glazed, so it's food safe, but this is not paint. Like, this is the color of the clay. It is the perfect size for a cup of tea. I love it. I have used it every single day since she gave it to me. It is just like, it's like holding a cup of love in your hand. And I was like, what? She said she had blue ones too. She does brown and blue. And I was like, all right, tell me more. So she gave me her friend's information. And her friend happens to have an Etsy shop with a small amount of like handmade pottery in it. And it's super reasonably priced. So I went on and I got myself a matching blue one. This one's a little bit smaller. See? I don't know how many ounces they hold, but they're both handmade. This is the blue one. You can see definitely the same family, same maker. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love that it has a pattern on the inside too. This mug was $15. I feel like it should cost more than that, right? Like, half the stuff on Etsy is like way more than that. Way more. It'd be like $40 for a mug. And I don't know, maybe she just does it for fun and wants to like make it accessible to people. I love it so much. Unbeknownst to me, like, this lady does not know me. We've never met. She has no idea I have a podcast, like none of that information. I posted on Instagram about how much I love this mug. And I tagged her in it. And my friend later texted me and said that just made her friend's day, like to the point that she teared up because someone was appreciating the love and energy that she put into making her pottery. And then when I ordered this, she added a little handmade, hand-thrown ring dish. So this is like, you put your rings on it. Whoop! I don't want to drop my beautiful handmade mug. You put your rings on it, your jewelry, and it keeps it from like, it has this little lip. So it's gorgeous. I did not pay for this. I did not ask for this. There was no expectation that I would mention her on my channel because she has no idea I even have a channel. She's just a person who loves to make pottery. And she wrote me the sweetest note. Like, But she said, thank you so much. It means a lot to have people find enjoyment out of something I created. Oh my gosh. So her Etsy shop, I'm going to link it down below. Her Etsy shop is Thick Bottom Pots, which I find hilarious. I will link her Etsy shop below. If you live in the US, I don't know if she ships internationally or not, but if you live in the US, I feel like you need this. And like the difference between a person, like a corporation, like you could go to Target and buy a mug for what? Mugs are like $10, aren't they? And it's just mass produced and there's nothing wrong with that. But literally for $15, I got the most beautiful handmade item that I will treasure forever. And this one was a gift from my friend who got it as a gift from her friend, but she gave it to me because I loved it so much. And it makes every day of my life so happy. So that's my shout out to Thick Bottom Pots. Thank you for making wonderful, beautiful clay art and being brave enough to do pottery when I would never, because it is too stressful to not know what's coming out of the kiln. Now, shall we continue talking about yarn? I have made some progress, y'all. Ooh, avalanche. Oh no. Sorry if that was really loud. I just like ran it into the thing. I've made some progress on my V-Neck Boxy. This is a pattern by Joji Locatelli. I am so close to joining the fronts and the back. And I thought I was gonna be able to get it done, but yesterday was just, so I didn't. So it's gonna be really hard to show you because it's on 3 separate needles. This is how much I have left of ball number 1. As you can see, I have made quite a bit of progress. I'm almost through an entire skein of yarn. And let's see here. So I can't really show you the back because it is on a very small cable, but this is the back. You start at the back neck and you work down. This was already done. Then you pick up the right shoulder, and I had picked up and done most of the short rows. So since the last time you have seen this, I finished the short rows and worked all of the stockinette and increases for the V-neck all the way down here. So this one is ready to be joined. Then I picked up the left shoulder, which starts right here, and I've worked all the way down to here. And I think I have, I want to say 4 to maybe 6 more rows of plain stockinette, increasing every so often for the V-neck, before I will be done with the left shoulder. Then I have to make sure that I have the same number of stitches on the left front and the right front. Let's see if I can, is this all? How does this work? This is attached. See if I can do it like this. Oh. I can't really pull it down because the back is on. Back is all messed up because it's on a small circular. So as long as I have the same number of stitches on these 2 panels, then what I can do is simply work this way, join the back, work all the way across the back, join this way to the front. Then I'm not sure how much more I'm going to have to work before I can join in the round. It says join body. I should have 94 stitches before I start working in the round. 94 stitches on each front. I don't know how many stitches I have now. I'm hoping it won't be too much more after I join, because I don't want to, like, one stockinette row of this is going to be really long, but it shouldn't, in my estimation, it shouldn't be too much. It should not be too many more rows of stockinette before I can join it. And I feel like once this is joined in the round, I don't know if it's going to fly because it's fingering weight yarn, but it's basically like making a giant sock. Like, I just am so happy. I dropped my yarn on the ground. Happens every time I podcast. I just throw things on the floor. So that is the V-Neck Boxy. It has seen a lot of progress, which I'm really happy about. And I have still 2 more projects to share with you. So many things. The reason I have so much to share with you is because it's been kind of a calm couple of weeks. And by that, I mean, I tend to work a lot at night because my kids are around all day. Like Nova's at school, but like Noah's still here. And I have from 8:30 to 2:30 without Nova, but like he has to take a nap. So it's really hard to meet with people during the day. And also they work usually. So I end up having a lot of night meetings, and it's been really calm the last 2 weeks, which has been wonderful. I think I've had one meeting at night both weeks. Fabulous. Next week I have one every single night, so I'm going to be real cranky. But this has just contributed to my overall sense of like calm and well-being, and like being able to work on projects has been really, really lovely. That's why there's so much done. I have made some significant progress on this also, my Wonder Woman shawl. I'm officially done with the W's. So let's see if I can find my yarn tags. This yarn is Kate Celine. I have no idea what the base is. It's just called Lady Glitter Sparkle. This is how much I have left. I assume it's a merino nylon stellina blend, but there was no information. And who am I? Who am I to know? The other one is Camelot Dye Works in the colorway Sea Serpent. It's 100% superwash merino wool. It's actually a sport weight, but I think that I will have enough to finish. I am making the big size because you can make a tiny Wonder Woman wrap or a big one. I'm making the big one because I like big shawls. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. It has just come into its own. I'm showing you the wrong side again. This stitch marker at the right where the blue is where I was last time I podcasted. So I have done this entire section right here, which is a lot of stitches. And it's increasing every row because it gets wider and wider and wider. And I just cannot. Like, it is beautiful. I love the way this yarn is working up. It ended up not really color pooling, which I'm happy about. It's just kind of color everywhere. And the blue provides such a good relief. So what I have to do now is fill in. So you do 2 triangles to fill in this part, and then you work a solid border of blue across the top, much like you have a solid border of blue on the bottom. So there's still a little bit, fair amount of work to do on this, but I am so happy with it. It's just, I mean, this looks like it would match my vibe perfectly to wear today. I love everything about it. I love the yarn. I love that this yarn is being used in finally out of my stash after being treasured for so long. Like, I just happy, 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 happy. And I'm really glad that I finally got to make a pattern that has been in my queue for years. Years I've wanted to make this shawl. So I'm glad I finally pulled out some yarn and did it. So lots of progress on that. Hopefully that'll be done next time I talk to you, but again, the next week's gonna be crazy, so who knows. The last project I have to share with you is my Westmont shawl. I'm in a shawl mood, can you tell? It's a Tunisian crochet pattern by Tony Lipsy, which is TL Yarn Crafts. And I have done 6 rows since the last time I talked to you, which is not very much, but each row takes me like a half an hour. So this is a lot of time. That's 3 hours of work I've spent on this. Maybe not quite, because the mesh rows don't take quite as long, but here we go. I have finished this mesh panel. This is where I was, this stitch marker. So I did 2 more rows of mesh, and I've done all of this 4 rows of Tunisian simple stitch. So that's what it looks like. This is what it looks like this way. It's just gorgeous. I have 1 more purple, 1 more mesh, 1 more purple. So I basically have this much left to do, but down here. And then a border. And I'll have to decide if it's big enough by then. I really think it will be, because that will add several inches. And then once this is blocked, it's going to grow. But if I want to find more yarn in my stash to add to it, I can, because I still have this much of ball number 1 of this main purple color. I have an entire another skein of it. So yeah, it's just lovely. It's really lovely. I'm really slow at Tunisian simple stitch, which irritates me. Like, I just like to go fast. That's why I like knitting in the round, because you go fast. But I'm trying to embrace slow making because really it's the process, right? Not the product. And I will have enjoyed this so much. And so what if it takes me a half an hour to do a single row? So what? That just means I'll have more time working with this lovely yarn. So I love it, I love it, I love it. And it's pink and it's purple. And it's living in the bag I got from Rhinebeck. So happy, happy, joy, joy. I have a little bit of a happy mail to share with you. One is I got a pattern gifted to me from my friend Emmy, and we're gonna make it together, although I don't know if I'm gonna make it to the together portion because it's gonna take me forever to figure out my yarn. For this, I'm going to show you a picture on my iPad because this does not do it justice. It's called the triangle, or it's called the Landscape Triangle Shawl. It's a pattern by Martin up north. And if you've been around Ravelry at all, you will have seen this because it's got quite a following. This is what this shawl looks like. Is that not amazing? It's so cool. You need a lot of different colors of yarn, and it's DK weight. But basically you're working like entrelac, Tunisian entrelac stitches. So like it's DK weight, but you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 colors. And you really only need like 50 grams total of each one. There's one that uses 60 grams. So I don't think I have that many colors of DK weight in my stash, but I may be able to just hold fingering weight double and get DK. And that would open up a lot more colors. I have to go into my stash and do some weighing and some measuring. So that's going to be a whole project in itself. It's probably going to take me an hour or two to pick out yarn for this. But it is super incredible. Like, that's amazing. So that will be on my to-make list. It may have to wait until the Westmont Shawl is done, but it's definitely going to happen. So thank you for that pattern. I can't wait to see yours. And then the other mail that I got is something that I ordered a long time ago. And that tends to be if I order something, it's like almost always a pre-order and then you don't get it for like months. I don't know why that is. Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment. But I saw this, and there's very few times in my life where I'm like, I have to have that. So usually when there is a time like that, I listen to it because it comes around very infrequently. I can think of no other time this entire year that this has happened. Maybe even longer. It is some yarn from the Aurora Borealis collection made by Haley Bailey. So she had a collection where she dyed, I think, 6 different colorways based on the Aurora Borealis. And I agonized. I'm like, what I would give to have every single color. But I know for a fact that I don't want to do a fade. I just want to make a sweater in this yarn. So I got enough for a sweater. Oh, I'm going to drop it. This is the colorway Luminous. And it is exactly luminous to me. It's very magical. It smells amazing. There's a sticker. And I forgot that I must have been like, oh, I just want all the different colors, but I know I want to make a sweater. I forgot that I had ordered one skein of this color, which is colorway Borealis. This will be something else by itself. Maybe like a sockhead hat or something that will just show it off perfectly. It's so beautiful. So yeah, I think Made by Haley Bailey is one of my favorite yarn dyers ever. Like, she just has the most beautiful yarn, and she's a beautiful human. This is going to be in my stash for a while because I'm not going to start using that yarn until after the V-Neck Boxy is done. My current plan for that yarn is to make the Golden Hour cardigan by Joji Locatelli, but of course that might change. I'll have to see how things work out. That's all the yarning. That's pretty good. It's 49 minutes I've been talking. There's, what do I have to tell you about my life? Happy and sad, There's been a lot of that the last couple of weeks. Noah turned 1. He's 1. Can you believe that he's turned 1 year old? We have his 1-year-old doctor appointment today. He is not just walking, he is into everything. Like, he's practically running. He's so fast. And he has no sense of fear. And he's just a sweet snuggle bug. And I love him so much. Nova's still loving school. Noah, for his birthday, did not care about cake at all. He did care about balloons, though. He was obsessed with the balloons. And we had a really small party, but I was like, listen, if you want to buy him something, this is the size clothes he is, but also, like, he likes toys that light up and make noise. And I think I got like 3 separate texts being like, are you sure you want toys that light up and make noise? Yes. Because the noise doesn't really bother me. It's loud noises that bother me, but just like regular noise doesn't bother me. And he loves it so much. He has just been playing by himself, wandering around the house, making a mess, doing all his things with his toys that light up. And so that's lovely. In sad news, one of my cousins died this week. And I'm not going to really talk about it because I'm sad, but also just privacy for the family. But he was only 23. And it's just awful. It's awful. And I found out yesterday. I was actually going to podcast yesterday, but I found out that yesterday and I just couldn't. I could not handle the idea of talking to a camera. There's a very high likelihood that I will be doing the funeral because I'm a pastor. So that's just weighing on my heart, making me really sad. But I don't really want to. It's one of those things that, like, when you see people on the internet, like, I feel like even I do this, right? I have an idea of what someone's life is like and have an idea of how great they have it or how blessed they are, or how, like, everything, like, you only get a small percentage of what is really going on in someone's life. And even, like, just because of my job as a pastor, I talk to so many people, and literally 90% of the time after I talk to people, I'm like, wow, like, you are doing great. Like, given what you are carrying on your shoulders and in your heart, like, you are rocking it. But nobody knows because that's not the kind of thing you share with just everybody. So, like, I don't know. It's easy to look at people and be like, oh, you know, like, she's just so positive and has, like, so many things going for her and it's just wonderful. And I try to be as transparent as possible and be like, no, that's not real life. Like, I cry about my kids. Sometimes I think I'm a terrible mother. Like, I do all of that, but, like, there are things that always go on in the background of everybody's life that, like, you just don't know. And so I don't need to tell y'all this because this yarn community is the best. But, like, you know, that's why you have to be kind to people, because you literally never know that somebody that they loved might have just died. Like, you don't know that. So I don't know. It's not really a PSA because y'all don't need to do that. You're kind already. The other thing that's going on starting Saturday is I'm not going to be able to take my allergy medicine for 5 days, which I have been on an antihistamine for over 20 years, daily. But I have to get allergy tested again next week. And so you cannot take an antihistamine for 5 days prior to getting allergy tested so that they can get actual results. And so I'm going to be miserable next week. Miserable. And of course, it's the week I have a night meeting every single week that requires a lot of talking from me. But I have to get allergy tested again because it's been 8 years. I'm done having babies, done nursing. So we are going to start talking about what can be done to kind of, like, mitigate some of my issues. We've talked about allergy shots, which sounds like a nightmare to me, but I if it will improve my life down the road, like if I can be middle-aged, older than that even, and be able to go outside without sneezing and coughing and, like, I want to be able to do that. I am kind of terrified that he's going to tell me I have asthma, which is the last thing I want to hear. But I just lately, my lungs, and I mean, your lungs are like here, right? Your lungs are huge, but, like, this is like your bronchioles. But they have just been so bad. Last week, you hear me coughing right now? That's because before I put baby Noah to bed, she left a marker, like, point into her bed. And it's a washable marker, so it should all come out. But like the entire marker leaked out all over her bed. So I had to take everything off, like just wash it all. And so while I was doing that, I was like, I'm going to move all of her furniture and sweep. My Lord, the amount of garbage. Like, when y'all have kids, do they do this? Like sheer garbage, like scraps of paper, bottle caps, like just a collection of nonsense that is actually garbage that belongs in the trash, like all in the wall between her and the bed. Underneath her bookshelf, there was like so much stuff. And so I moved everything and I swept it up, and I literally cannot breathe now. Like, it hurts to breathe, which is why I've been drinking tea. I'm trying really hard not to cough because I think that will just make it worse. So it's been getting worse for a while. And I think that having baby Noah made it a lot worse, because it has been worse since he has been born. Like, I have had more breathing problems, which just makes me so annoyed. Like, pregnancy, gosh, why is it allowed to change our body so much? So I'm really afraid he's going to tell me I have asthma and then like give me an inhaler. But so I don't know about that. But also I need to breathe. So yeah, if it is asthma, I need to, have a protocol, because I want it to be managed and I want it to cause the least amount of damage possible, so that I can be outside with my kids all the time, like we already are. So yeah, that's what's going on. There's just all kinds of moving pieces. Noah's one. There's a funeral coming up any day. I don't know. It's not even scheduled yet. Noah's got his 1-year doctor appointment today. And then this afternoon is going to be nuts. So it's 12:30 right now. I have to pick her up 10 minutes early from school. So 2:20. We're going to rush to the doctor to get Noah's appointment done. That'll probably take an hour. Then we're going to eat dinner. Then we're going to try and clean up a little bit. Then we're going to go back to school for open house, which was supposed to be 2 weeks ago, but due to torrential downpours, it got canceled and rescheduled. And then we come back, and then some people are coming over. So just so many moving pieces. Also, y'all remember in the video update I posted after Hurricane Debbie came through that we had like 8 inches of water in our backyard and 8 inches of water in the building in our backyard. So that was like a big cleanup job. Last week, there was so much rain in 48 hours. There was like 10 inches of rain. There was 10 inches of water in our backyard because the ditch overflowed again, which means there was 10 inches of water in that building again. So it was easier to muck it out this time because everything had already been moved and like we had already like stripped and cleaned and all kinds of stuff. But I do think that really aggravated my breathing as well, because so yeah, just all kinds of things going on. I'm going to sign off because I'm starting to feel like I really need to cough. So if you're making something for the Fancy Yarn Mail and you have not told me what you're making, please comment below and let me know. If you're making progress, let me know what progress you have made. And I would love, if you have the resources and the funds, just go on Thick Bottom Pots on Etsy. I will leave the link below and like buy something from her and tell her I sent you. Or don't, it doesn't matter. Just go buy something from her, because I think she's a lovely human who deserves to sell her beautiful creations because they're magical. Like, they're so pretty. So go do that. If you have the resources and you want to hold a cup of love in your hand, she also makes bowls and all kinds of things. Go do it. And yeah, I think that's it. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button. And you can also give me a thumbs up. Those don't cost you anything, but they let YouTube know and me know that I'm making content worth watching. And if you want to like make sure you don't miss it in your long list of crochet and knitting podcast subscriptions, hit the notification bell, because then you'll just get a little like, beep, a new podcast is up. And I have some fun stuff that I'm planning for October. So until I see you next time, be kind to yourself and take care of yourself. And I hope you get some craft time. Bye, friends.